Hi, everybody.
Hi,
What's up, everybody?
everybody.
Hello.
Um, oh, we're Oh, okay, cool. All right, we were good. Sorry, guys. First time
We were
sharing a
fine.
podcast. Here we go. Welcome to the Off and Turn One podcast. Gary Wells here. Now we have revamped the show a little bit. We are going live for the first time. We've got Mike Campigio and we've got AJ Capola here with us.
Hello, everybody.
Hi, everybody. So, how's everybody doing tonight? I know the race was kind of crazy and very eventful at the end. I see we're trying to work on some stuff behind the scenes here, but
Sorry, I was here twice because I forgot I had it on another tab. So I
oh
had a
yeah, you
panic moment. I
definitely
was like, "Why am I hearing myself twice?" There we
you
go.
definitely want to shut that off, Gary.
Talk about a
It's like I've never been on a show before.
talk
Um,
about talk about a wild Sunday night. Holy cow!
that was yeah. That we will talk about that. That is for sure. Um, but before we talk about tonight, I want to talk about last night a little bit. Truck race um, at Richmond. It was a pretty good race. I mean, it was pretty mid throughout, but restarts were exciting. And we had some really solid side by side action. I mean, Grant Enfinger led the most laps at 98 laps last night. He had a strong truck most of the night. Um, Ty Dillon even led for a few laps, led 4 laps last night. Corey Heim led some laps. But it was a very uncharacteristic night for the Tricon Garage team, especially that 11 truck. They did not run well. I mean, they finished 16th with Heim. And I mean, Taylor Gray finished third, but I mean, really, it was an uncharacteristic night for that 11 team in particular.
Yeah, that was very shocking to me, especially coming off the Olympic break. How much that 11 truck's been dominant this year, and then
Yeah.
seeing what they did last night, it was like night and day difference.
Yeah, it was. It made them look human for sure. One thing I really, and I'm gonna just hop right into the lack of TV coverage. I'm just gonna dive right into it.
We're going down that rabbit hole already.
We're going down that rabbit hole right from the get go because this is the Off and Turn One podcast and I can do whatever the hell I want. So, basically, I got AJ on that one. So,
This is my show.
yeah. So what I really didn't get last night, I get it's the Olympic break, and I get NASCAR cut the pre-race coverage for the Truck Series the rest of the year, but I think NASCAR and Fox could have done a better job advertising that this was the regular season finale.
I agree.
Not a whole lot of people knew that because if you think about it,
I right now didn't know that.
see, you still didn't know, and they raced last night because last year IRP was a playoff race, and then the year before that was a playoff cutoff race. So it was like they didn't know. Most of the fans didn't know that IRP was second to last race until the playoffs, and then last night was the regular season finale. So I think Fox and NASCAR could have done a better job just advertising that, especially a 2 week break. Everybody just you're racing 3 weeks later. Everybody's going to forget what's going on and all that kind of stuff. So I think NASCAR and Fox could have done a better job just advertising the race a little better and making it more of a big deal than I guess you could say what the race was. The race was kind of mid, but I thought for the most part, like toward the end, we saw some action, saw a lot of 4 wide racing, especially on those restarts. So I mean, it was a decent night, but
Can I just say one thing about the TV rabbit hole? Is them
don't
canceling?
talk about Jamie Little.
No, I wasn't going to talk about that,
Okay,
but
all right.
that's a conversation for another day that we can have.
That's another podcast.
Yeah, but for them not doing pre-race coverage anymore and just them scrapping Truck Series pre-race, it's like, what?
Now they used to have like an hour, if I'm not
Mhm.
mistaken, before the cut. I get it if you want to cut it from 60 minutes to 30 minutes because you don't need an hour. This isn't the Cup
No.
Series.
No,
But you definitely need something more than just like, hey guys, welcome to the broadcast. Now here's pre-race ceremonies. Like it felt like, I'm just gonna be real. It felt like an iRacing broadcast. Can I be real? Like,
it
because
did.
AJ, you know how we do our broadcast sometimes. Like, well, we go in, we dive right into it, but like we don't. There's not. We just kind of dive right into it. Here's qualifying. Here's
Yeah.
some pre-race analytics. Here's some of the points. But
Yeah.
like, they didn't even do that. They just said, we're hitting the ground running. Here's the race.
Mhm.
I think for what the night was, they definitely give them at least 15 minutes to get all their thoughts and things out, because when it's the three of us doing a broadcast, we could hit through things pretty quick in a matter of 2 or 3 minutes, where I could see where they would need a pre-race show at minimum.
Well, and you also got to think too, especially at the time of the season that the trucks are at, your regular season's finale, and then you're going right into the playoffs. And it's like, if you're not going to have any pre-race coverage like week to week to at least set the storylines up or to set the cut line up.
Yeah, because they cut race up too. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like how are people going to know what the heck's going on?
Right. No, I agree entirely. I totally agree with that. Because they're off next week for Michigan. I mean, they're not racing at Michigan anymore, and then they're hitting the Milwaukee Mile day after the Cup finale. So, it's just one of those things where it's like they definitely could have done a better job in a couple of areas. To cover the series. I get it, and that's where I get where people are saying, well, why do we want to have Fox cover the Truck Series? Well, I mean, Fox has been covering the Truck Series since what, 2002, 2003. So I mean, they've been covering it for over 20 years, for the whole season, that entire time. So I mean, I get it, but it's like,
well, and you have to think about it too, especially with them losing the Xfinity Series next year. The Truck Series is going to be their second tier broadcast next year behind the Cup Series.
Yeah.
And if you're not,
and we don't even know who's going to be in the booth, because I mean, there's been rumors that Adam Alexander's going to go to CW. Rick Allen's going to go to CW. They haven't figured out the lineup yet for the CW, but I'm sure we'll figure that out here in the coming weeks. Really, the only thing that we know is that Dale Jr. is going to be on Amazon and TNT.
Yep.
And it's going to be the same production team for those 10 weeks.
And whether you're watching with us live or on tape delay, let us know what you thought about the weekend. We're talking about the truck race right now, but throw those comments, hit those likes, do all that wonderful stuff. We also want to hear from you. Gary's got both the YouTube and the multi-stream chat ready to go. So if you have any questions, thoughts, opinions, whatever, he can see it, and we can react off of that as well. Gary, you're going to want to hit the one that says multi-stream. Because that'll give you Facebook as well, and Twitch, and YouTube, usually put together. And but TikTok. Yeah, that does not give you TikTok. That's why it pops up that second screen.
Anyways.
But yeah, I got to give a huge shout out to Justin Clapper. He's the tire changer on the 98. And I saw his post this morning.
Won the race.
And it looks like by the time he got to victory lane, he was gone.
Well, I'm sure he was with the crew there on the front stretch when they were throwing a Gatorade at Ty at the end of the race there.
Oh, he was.
But that's really cool to hear. And people forget, because Olympic break, they've won the last 2 races, so they are on a hot streak coming into the playoffs. And the playoffs have a lot of short tracks there, so they're hitting Milwaukee, which that place drives like a short track. They got Bristol in there, Martinsville.
Phoenix, technically.
Phoenix is, a mile track, kind of like a Milwaukee there, kind of races like a short track a little bit. So, I mean, all the roads, to me, in my opinion, are pointing towards Majeski to making the championship 4. Whether he wins the championship or not, who knows? That remains seen. But the potential's still there, for sure.
Yeah, because he last made the championship 4. What was that, 22? Was the last time he was on the championship 4?
Yeah, something like that. 21, 22, somewhere in there. Yeah.
How good has he done in the playoffs?
He usually gets himself into a spot where he can get into the championship 4. Because usually he'll win either one of the first 2 races, whether it's Milwaukee or Bristol. And then he'll go win Martinsville typically. That's kind of been his bread and butter.
Well, remember the last time that he won Milwaukee, he got that points penalty and everybody got suspended because that truck failed.
Yeah, because he missed the championship 4 last year because of that, because he won Milwaukee, but then that win got taken away. I can't remember who won that race, but typically, so in the past, we've talked about in the round of 8 how Martinsville, when it was the third to last race of that point, propelled you to Homestead back in the day. Well, Milwaukee or even Bristol is kind of that way, where if you win like Bristol or Homestead, then you could start working on your truck for Phoenix, and then you can just throw Martinsville out the window. So,
can I just say one thing?
Not saying that Majeski's going to do that, but if he wins, Bristol or Martinsville or Bristol or Homestead, he's got an easy way in.
Can I say one thing? I just want to thank the schedule gods for allowing the Truck Series to go back to Martinsville on the second last weekend of like the season, because for like the last couple of years it was just Xfinity and Cup on that weekend. And now they're putting the trucks back on that weekend, so you're gonna get 3 days of fantastic short track racing.
Yeah, and I never really understood why they left Martinsville off the Truck Series schedule there for that year or two. It didn't make a whole lot of sense to me.
It didn't make sense at all.
No.
Yeah, because and that's the thing. I'm glad this is kind of like a throwback, though, if we think about it, gentlemen, because the trucks were kind of built on the short tracks. That's what the Truck Series ran for a lot of years. Was short tracks, road courses, and occasionally they'd go to Charlotte and maybe like Kansas on an off week and Kentucky on an off week, and then Daytona and Talladega. That was kind of like that was it. I mean, then they started running basically as the companion series, Cup Series. It's not great, in my opinion. I think it's better off just kind of let the Truck Series be the Truck Series.
Shall we get into the festivities of tonight?
Yeah, let's talk about tonight. So,
how much time do we have for this? Because
we got plenty of time. We're on a podcast. We can talk about this as long as we want. So, I want to go over our pre-race picks. I didn't tell you what they were, Mike, but I did get one out of AJ. He picked Ryan Truex. There you go, Rob.
I would have rather have picked Ryan Truex.
He might have done better.
Martin Truex Jr., that's who he picked, and he had engine woes. Mike, you picked Chris Buescher. That didn't work out for you. And I picked Denny Hamlin. And we saw how that worked out for me, picking Denny Hamlin.
Well, you finished second.
I mean, he
with
finished
the
second.
shoulder.
So, yeah, with the shoulder, which I think it was the same shoulder he got surgically repaired in the offseason.
Which is not a good look. Especially with that getting surgically repaired, and then you think about a Kyle Busch injury in his wrist 3 weeks ago. It's like, oof.
That's just the nature of this car. It's kind of like the cars back in the 80s and 90s where they're built like bricks, and they race
like bricks too,
and they don't fall apart. I mean, it's just kind of the way the car is right now. So until NASCAR decides to overhaul the car and fix that, which I don't see happening, these guys are going to have a messed up shoulder, messed up wrist, concussions. It's gonna
just hope it doesn't cut anybody's career short. Like we've seen concussions really take people out.
Yeah, because I mean, even Junior has said like if he didn't have all the concussions that he had, even in the Gen 6 era, he still probably would have retired around the same year Jimmy did, which was 2020. Maybe even the year after, maybe in 21. But it definitely cut his career short by about 4 or 5 years. Definitely.
Kurt Busch, I mean, his career got cut short by 2 years because he was going to retire.
1 year.
Was it 1 year? So it had been last year.
Yeah, last year was going to be his victory tour. Because it was like 23 years, and he was on like his 5th team or something. There was something significant about the 45 with it too, but.
Well, I think he was going to retire because I think he knew Harvick was going to retire, and those two, since they both came in the sport.
Yeah, they came in the same year, 2001, under much different circumstances. Kurt Busch was the hot prospect. Harvick got thrown into the seat because Dale died. But yeah, it definitely would have been cool to see them guys retire at the same time. But yeah, I mean that's just something that that NASCAR's gonna have to think about with the safety of this car. I mean. But I think we've also taken to an account that we've kind of taken safety for granted as NASCAR fans over the last 20 years before this next gen car was built, where people would just, wreck and pop right out and no problems, no nothing. They'd be all right. But hey, that's just the way it goes sometimes. So, little different race that we had tonight. First points race with multiple compounds. We had the soft tire and we had the harder tire. So that was working good for us. We had 8 tire sets total, 6 of the primaries, 2 of the option tires, and I know AJ, we were watching the race together, and just Mike, you were watching it with your dad, but tonight's race was just, it seemed chaotic, but in a good way. Like, it seemed like everybody was playing for the long game tonight, which was a change compared to the last, few races we've seen already.
So you say chaotic, mostly like a controlled chaos.
Yes, very much so.
In a way.
The different strategies, because there were people doing 1-stop strategy, 2-stop strategy.
And it was cool that we actually saw them use the tires, just like at Wilkesboro, where there was no give between the tires. At least here,
Right.
you actually saw a difference between red and yellow, and then oh crud, these actually work. And then
Yeah. Well, yeah. So you mentioned that, right? So McDowell, when he got his lap back and under the first stage caution, he came back and they said, you know what? We're already back here in last anyway because of the lucky dog. Let's go ahead and put the option tires on and see what happens. And they went from basically 36th, 37th, right? To, you know,
top 10.
I think it was
into
top
the
10.
top 10 in
And it
stage
was
2.
fast.
And I
It
mean,
was
even though
very
Suarez
fast.
started outside the top 10, it wasn't by much. I think he restarted like 15th after stage 1 going into 2. And he went for the option tires. I mean, he was leading the darn thing and passing everybody. But the thing was, his crew was able to control him a little bit, tell him to manage the gap and thinking big picture. And that ultimately got him to win stage 2. I really thought at the end of that race, if that caution didn't come out, it was going to be interesting. Because I thought the 99 and 3 were probably the 2 best cars tonight in the race, especially after the lights went on and about midway through stage 2. So,
Well, and that's what the NBC broadcast was talking about too, especially late in the race. They had the multi-view camera where they had Austin Dillon on one shot and Suarez on the other shot, and they kept playing up the story of, okay, Suarez is going to get there. He's 15 seconds back with 20 laps to go. Then he was all of a sudden 10 seconds back with about 15 to go, and then he was about 5 seconds back with about 5 to go. And it's like that storyline with these tires. I mean, those option tires made a difference, which was great.
yeah. Well, and it just comes down to catching the guys is one thing, passing them is another. I really would have liked to see how that would have played out, but I think Suarez would have finished around.
He also got held up by Bubba for a while.
He did get held up by Bubba a little bit.
He got right to Bubba and just could not get around the 23, which good job for the 23 being able to hold that position for as long as he did. He ended up coming home third. So he stayed with everybody he needed to, even after that caution.
Yeah, no, he.
But I love that we had strategy.
Yeah,
I love that we're just not following the leader all the way to the stage and then the finish. We actually had strategy where multiple drivers were on different forms of tire compound and just pit cycle. We don't get that a lot anymore.
Yeah, that's true.
I will say that the tires and like we were talking about the strategy, this race was a lot different than what it was in the spring, and it was really good to see that. I mean, there's points in the race when there was a long green flag run where it's like, okay, they're spread out, cars are racing from the bottom of the track all the way to the top of the track.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, yeah, it's the Gen 7 short track. It's not the greatest race in the world, but with the tires and everything, it made Richmond a little bit better than the spring, but not by much.
Well, and as I was saying earlier, I think I was telling the guys in there because Josh was like watching the race with us, and he was saying, "Look at how high Larson is." And what I told AJ and everybody that was in there, that is the first time that I have seen guys run that third lane up against the fence in 3 and 4 at Richmond in 15 years. And it was actually working for Larson. Larson was making it work to keep his momentum up. So I thought, even though the race for the lead wasn't exciting, you still had comers and goers in the top 5 and in the top 10. That made it for pretty entertaining racing. And by the way, shout out to Suarez who finished 10th tonight. I know it's not the result that he run like 3rd or 4th in that caution case.
He got to 5th before that late caution came out between Priest and Stenhouse.
Both Trackhouse cars finished in the top 10. You had Ross in 5th and then Daniel in 10th. So, I mean, that's one of the first nights, I want to say in probably a year and a half, where we've seen both Trackhouse cars in the top 10 at the end of the
So can we talk about that late race yellow? Because what the heck even happened there?
Yeah, I didn't see it. I blinked. But it looked like to me that from the replays that I saw that Stenhouse got loose underneath.
Priest.
Priest. It was
got
Priest.
Loose underneath Priest, got up into Priest, and they wrecked. But I was telling Scott this because Scott was like, "Oh, Ricky just ran out of talent." I said, "Yeah, he ran out of talent probably, but like it's also in that section of the corner where I've seen in the sim where the car can just kick out and get loose on you, and I don't know if there's just like a bump down there or just the transition from the straightaway to the corner is just a little bit awkward in that spot. with the load and everything. But it looked like that's what happened to Ricky as he was trying to get around Priest because it was right in front of Austin Dillon, and they're both fighting to try and stay on the lead lap, and they just end up taking each other out.
And Austin did. No, I was gonna say, and Austin Dillon sitting there like half a lap away from a win, just like, you gotta be kidding me, really, right in front of me.
Yeah, right. Well, and the thing is too,
that's gotta be a kick in the balls.
I think what was we want to talk. Speaking of a kick in the balls,
No, please don't.
Bell tonight.
Oh,
dude,
speeding on pit road. Bowman speeding on pit road as well.
What I sent you, he led
120 to go.
Yeah, with 120 to go, he probably was leading 80 laps, 90 laps at that point.
Well, let's take a look. How many laps did he led? 122 laps on the night. He ended up recovering decently. He got up to 6, but for Bowman, not so much. When he sped, he finished 28.
Yeah, Bowman. None of the Hendrick cars had that much speed tonight, and they were all off.
I said the same thing. I was telling them guys. I said, look at the Hendrick cars. It's kind of been a quiet Hendrick night. Like Larson wasn't running as good. Chase wasn't running as good, but it's kind of been a thing since both Junior, when like those 3 guys retired, Junior, Jimmy, and Jeff, when they all retired, they haven't ran good at Richmond. I mean,
no.
It's just kind of been a struggle for them. Like Jimmy and Jeff and Junior had that place figured out. They were really solid at Richmond.
Well, I think the one win that Bowman has in 21 at Richmond was based off tires and like a late restart. So
yeah, it was a late restart for him. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I mean, I was gonna say I give Larson the one that he won in 22 or 23, and
yeah, he dominated that race.
He did.
He was pretty good that day. So yeah, I mean, other than that, they're not that good consistently. I mean, your top race, the lap leaders tonight was Denny Hamlin, Christopher Bell, and Daniel Suarez. Suarez led 93, Hamlin with 124, and Bell with 122.
I might just be a Chase fan here, and this is 100% going to come across as a Chase fan.
Mm-hmm.
Stage 1, he finished 6th. Stage 2, 10th, and finished the race in 9th. So
it was a solid night. I mean, he had a very quiet night. Now, the midway portion through the race, it wasn't looking good. I think he got lapped at one point, or was on the verge of getting lapped.
So he got lapped.
He did.
Yeah. So I mean, it wasn't looking good for Chase, but they were able to recover and finish 9th.
Well, here's the thing with him. It's him and Larson are going to be battling for the regular season title, but also we think about it now. Add Reddick into that mix for the regular season title, because
Reddick was 15 back coming into tonight.
Yeah, he finished 3rd.
Yeah, so he's hitting the stretch run here in perfect position, I think.
He would have made up. Who's leading the regular season
right now? Right? Yeah, Larson, but
pre-race tonight. Yeah. So I mean, Larson only got 30 points. Tyler Reddick got 40, and Chase got 34. So I mean, he outscored. It wasn't by much, but he did outscore both those guys.
But we can say though, the next few weeks, if Reddick continues the hot streak that he's on, he might win it. He
might win at Darlington, because Darlington. Yeah. So I know Chris Buescher ran really good there in the spring, and I know Brad Keselowski ran good there in the spring. I'm looking at those RFK cars, but Reddick, I think, is going to be another guy to look out for when we go to the Southern 500 here in a few weeks, because he was good there too. Like
Reddick is scary.
Those 3 guys, yeah, I'd be running damn scared for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. I do want to give a little bit of a shout out though. Bubba finishing 4th, solid top 5 night.
5th in both stages.
5th in both stages. Finished the race in 4th. Scored 42 points tonight. Had a great race. Also want to shout out Carson Hocevar. Started 19th, finished 8th. Didn't hear a damn peep from him all night. He didn't right rear anybody. He didn't rage quit on Harrison Burton. He didn't do nothing. Like, when he has his head on straight and he is focused, he runs good for Spire. He runs top 10, top 15.
He's better than Zane Smith and Corey LaJoie.
I was looking at Zane. Now, I was looking at Zane tonight. He did not have a good night, obviously.
No.
But every time I saw an onboard camera where he was around one of the guys with an onboard camera, it seemed like out of 2 and out of 4, that car was just way, way loose for him on exit. Like, they couldn't figure it out. And they tried prime tires, they tried sticker tires, or the option tires. Nothing was working. Like, they tried the yellows, the reds. Nothing was working for the 71. And I was thinking that car was probably even driving worse for him on the red tires. those are softer tires and they're faster tires, it's just going to amplify everything that you've already got going on with the car. But Zane did recover. I saw him. He was running like 30th, like 35th. He did finish 23rd.
And this is the first time he's at this track, right?
No, second time.
Second time. He's running for
in the Cup car. Okay.
Yeah. Second time in the Cup car. Which this place is kind of tricky anyway. So like the first couple times you come here anyway. Sometimes it could be like Martinsville, where you just in Darlington, where you just need to crash the car the first couple times you come here. The stacking pennies guy finished 34th. So Corey LaJoy once again proving that I think it's a good decision. Spires moving on for you at the end.
Whose decision was that?
That was Jeff Dickerson decision. He was talking about.
Yes, I know. It's ultimately his choice because he's a car owner. But do you think Rodney Childress maybe had a little bit to do with it?
I think so. I think a little bit of that.
Yeah.
I was just going off of what I heard when Jeff Dickerson was on the morning drive on Sirius XM this week when he was talking about the decision.
He was just giving the politically correct answer.
Which
I don't blame him. I'm not
7?
dissing him. I'm not doing nothing. I'm just saying.
We don't know who's taking the 7 right now.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I have a couple theories. I think you might put Sam Mayer in the car.
But I mean, you can talk about the Gamebridge theory if you want to.
Nick Sanchez, really?
No, I was just talking about Gamebridge in general with Andretti Global. So I mean, I know that's
who the hell they
something
gonna put in the car? They ain't gonna put Marco Andretti in that car. They ain't gonna hire that nepotism. Ain't gonna happen. Sorry, not happening. I don't know why they would put Marco Andretti. He hasn't done crap. Like, okay, let's put Marco Andretti in a quality Xfinity or truck, and let's see what he can do.
Sure.
But right now, with him driving the 04 and like the 17 in ARCA, ain't done crap. We ain't putting Marco Andretti in that car. I would put John Andretti, who's dead. I'd put him in the car over Marco. Rest in peace to John Andretti.
Wasn't expecting that.
100%. I put Mario in the car over Marco right now. Okay.
You probably put Michael in that car.
I mean, like anybody but Marco, and I love Marco Andretti. I'm a big Marco fan, but I don't think his dreams and goals right now is to run full time at the Cup. That ship sailed. I think he's almost 40 years old now. Hard to believe. I think he's like 35, 38, something like that. I don't think his goal is to. I don't think his goal is to run in the Cup Series at any point.
So
could be wrong, but
so can we turn the page here and talk about Toyota? Toyota's got a massive engine problem.
Yeah,
massive.
And that's the thing. Like, so people were asking me earlier. I get texts throughout the race, and a lot of the time I don't like to respond, and I like to make the podcast.
Millions and millions of dollars.
But people are like, who supplies the engines for Toyota? Because there for a while in the first couple of years with Toyota, Michael Waltrip Racing was building their own stuff. Gibbs was building their own stuff. Then it was like at the end of 08, like halfway, maybe in the chase in 08, TRD said, hey, we'll just build the engines and supply the engines for all the Toyota teams. Similar to what Ford does with the Roush Yates. I don't know what TRD's got going on, but between the 19, I think the 20, 45, everybody's been having engine problems lately. I don't know what's been going on.
Can I mention something that came out this week?
Shoot it.
TRD and David Wilson, the president, is retiring at the end of the year, and Tyler Gibbs is taking over TRD. Supposedly, is that what you're gonna say?
Retiring. I think he was forced out. Because
you think it has anything to do with the engine issues?
No, I don't think it has anything to do with that. I think it's something else. I personally, so Toyota has been trying to get back into IndyCar for the last 5-6 years. And David Wilson kind of been vetoing that.
Oh, okay.
So I think that might be part of the issue is because David Wilson keeps vetoing that. They're tired of vetoing it, and so they want to get back into IndyCar.
How good was Toyota in IndyCar?
Oh, they were great. I mean, they had, I think, Ganassi ran Toyota engines for a little bit. I think Penske also did too. There were a few teams, and they won a couple championships and a few Indy 500s in their time with Toyota. They were in IndyCar, I want to say from 9 to like 05. They were in there for a little bit. I think they even won a couple championships. That was when they had Toyota, Honda, and Chevrolet. And then after 05, it was all Honda there for a little while. Until I think like 2011, 2012. Then Chevrolet got back into the mix. And they had Lotus for a year. And the Lotus was awful.
I remember that.
Lotus was terrible. Like, you want to
Yeah,
talk about
man.
engine problems. They were slow and they were blowing up in Lotus. So they weren't very good at all. And a lot of the Lotus teams switched from Lotus mid-year to switch to Chevrolet. And so Lotus was basically dead by the end of 2011. And it's just been Chevy and Honda the last 13, 14 years.
Right?
Yeah, 13, 14 years, something like that. It's just been a Chevy and Honda only deal. And like, I think what will increase your car count for entries in the Indianapolis 500, we could talk about this another time, if you add that third engine manufacturer. Now, IndyCar is doing the right thing that NASCAR could take notes on. NASCAR, take notes, okay? This is why you can't get manufacturers. Yeah, right. IndyCar is running a hybrid now. I think to win on Sunday, saw on Monday type mentality, which we have here in America when it comes to auto racing, you need to have something similar to what they're making in the shops on the showroom floor. Okay, you need to have a similar engine package, right? What I'm getting at with that is hybrid. Look at what IMSA is doing. Hybrid. Formula One, hybrid. Okay, NASCAR's still running engines that are based out of the 60s and 70s. Pushrod V8 engines. You know what's not being ran anymore in any other series in the world?
Pushrod?
V8 engines. Correct. So they need to switch it up. They need to go to hybrid. And plus, I think if the Cup Series will do it first because they get the most money. But if the Cup Series goes hybrid, I think that's when we'll start seeing the days of 800, 850 horsepower back underneath those cars. Because the engines are pushing out 650. I think that's probably what NASCAR's wanting to do with just raw engine power, anywhere from 650 to 700. But I think if you add in that hybrid unit, that's going to give them an extra 200 horsepower.
Well, the next gen is designed at some point to include a hybrid.
A hybrid engine, so they got to do something here pretty soon. And if they want to have other manufacturers coming in, like a Honda or Kia or whoever, you need to get a hybrid engine.
Do you think this is even being talked about within NASCAR?
I would imagine it probably is, but they've been sitting here talking about new manufacturers since 2018.
No, I'm talking about the engine, like going the hybrids. Do you think that's even talked about?
I'm sure it has been, but I don't think there's really been any testing done on it yet.
I think they're more worried about doing the charter deal because they still haven't got that done, and that's more of a priority right now. And they've also, I was reading an article that came out from Adam Stern talking about if that's not out by the time Netflix starts filming for the playoffs, teams are gonna like veto and be like, yeah, we're not gonna do this Netflix thing.
Wow.
And so literally, I mean, the Netflix thing starts in what? 3-4 weeks?
4 weeks?
Is when they're going to start filming? 3 or 4 weeks from now?
Yeah, it'd be Darlington since Daytona's not the finale.
Yeah, I mean, we're coming up on it. They need to do something. They need to do something fast. And part of the problem is Jim France is kind of like his brother, Bill Jr. They don't like RTAs. They don't like unions. And that's kind of what has happened here when Brian France took this crap over and they started the charter deal 10 years ago. This is the last thing Brian France ever did, really, was outside the playoffs. Well,
got arrested.
Charter deal. And Jim France just wants to go team to team to team to team to team and then make a decision.
Yeah.
And that's not how they want to do it. They want to have all the teams, all of them, however many there are, to sit here and agree on a deal. And Jim doesn't want to do it that way. He wants to go to team to team to team, hear what everybody has to say, and then try to combine everything. And that's not how that wants to get done. I don't think that's how the teams want to do it. But, you know, as I say, adapt or die. I've said that a lot. I've said that during race broadcasts. I've said that in my own life, like adapt or die. And it's not looking good for NASCAR. We'll just put it that. And the thing that really kind of annoys me a little bit. Now I know this rumor just came out, this was said on Junior's podcast a couple weeks ago, where they've talked with the Yankees in the past, like the New York Yankees, to do a
Yeah,
partnership to
I've-
try to get a cup team going.
Yeah, I've heard of this rumor.
Yeah. Well, apparently it was true because Junior mentioned it on his podcast. The fact that the most popular driver, well, let me rephrase this. He's not a driver anymore. The biggest name that has a legacy outside of a Petty is what, people? And don't say
Earnhardt.
Allison. We're not counting Allison. Said Earnhardt. That's right. That is the biggest name with a legacy in the sport. The fact that Dale Earnhardt Jr. can't get into the Cup Series right now because of the costs of charters, pretty sad.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty sad. Honestly, when that BK charter was up for sale in 2018, 2017, whatever that was, when BK was going under and Front Row bought it,
Should have bought it.
Junior should have bought it. Should have bought that charter and then probably the charter that the 99 had before they bought Ganassi. They had a charter from Germain, I think.
At the end of that article, it says the Yankees were interested, but it doesn't. They don't know NASCAR enough to jump into it. Is what it was saying.
Well, right. Well, if you think about it, who's the family that owns the Yankees? It's Steinbrenners.
Steinbrenners.
Yes.
Yep.
Okay, I think they
George
still
would have done
it. What's that?
That George would have done it. Hal, I don't see Hal really doing
Well,
it.
didn't one of the Steinbrenners buy into Harding Racing in IndyCar a few years ago? And that when Harding got sold off to Andretti, there was one of the cars in the field, and I think it's still that way to this day. I think it's either the 98 or the 27 or the 26. It's like Andretti Global with Steinbrenner Racing or something like that. Steinbrenner's listed as one of the owners of the Andretti cars, I think.
That's probably a Joe question.
That is a Joe question, but Joe's not.
But he's watching Borderlands right now, which I hope he's having fun with his claptrap popcorn bucket.
Well, he's home from Borderlands because I saw a notification for Steam that he's playing Borderlands. I'm glad it didn't pop up on the stream. If it did, sorry, can't help it. So maybe he's watching, who knows? But no, let's go ahead.
We're gonna get to the elephant in the room.
I've been trying to
trying
to put this off because I feel opposite of you, Mike. So I'm gonna let you go on the rant today. You were not happy with the finish of the Cup race. So let's talk about the finish of the Cup race. AJ, we're gonna start with you.
Oh, this is no fun.
Oh no, start with Mike. Mike is the one that's different between the both of us.
Okay, how far off different am I?
We thought the finish was great.
I love the iRacing endings.
Just because you broadcast iRacing doesn't mean it needs to happen all the time.
We thought it was great because you took out the two most hated drivers in the field to win the race. That's just me. I mean, that's where I was at.
That is a good point. He did take both of the guys out.
That was
hated,
like,
so
that we were just like, I was just like, hell yeah, Austin Dillon, go ahead, go get him. Like, because I thought. So I said this. I don't think anybody really heard me because we were just losing our freaking minds in the chat. But as soon as he dumped Logano, I was like, that just opened the door for Denny Hamlin. Denny Hamlin's going to win this race now. And then I saw him right rear Denny Hamlin. I was like, all right, cool. And that's
all right, AJ, give us your take.
Oh,
that was by far the most iRacing ending to a race I've seen in real life NASCAR
in a long time.
Yeah, in a long time. Overall, the race was actually fun. There were battles, not always at the front, but through the field,
comers and goers all the way through.
Sometimes four wide. I know I mentioned earlier the tire compounds being different allowed teams to be on different strategies through the race. But that ending, that restart, I still think Logano jumped it just a little bit. I really do.
Well, and so they went back and replayed the restart afterwards, Mike. I don't know if you were watching or if you were still sitting there raging at that point.
No, I was watching.
Logano was ahead in the restart zone. Like, from the beginning of the restart zone all the way through, he was ahead of Austin Dillon.
Okay.
And beat him to the line and everything. And Austin Dillon didn't even really go.
No, he didn't.
Well,
I think they threw out a stat on the broadcast that Austin Dillon has like the worst percentage in restarts this entire single year. Like, he's like one of the worst guys on restarts.
Yeah. Well,
yeah, but he's supposed to dictate the go.
Yeah.
Well, think about what happened in the spring. They had a controversial restart in the spring on an overtime attempt. We saw how that turned out.
Because Denny Hamlin was on the outside, Martin was on the inside, and even we were breaking this down. I was breaking this down with Scott. Shout out to Scott if you're watching. I was asking him, like, with two to green before they were going to the choose. I said, "Do you go top or bottom here?" And he was just kind of torn. He was kind of explaining it, and I was just like, Scott, you got to choose which lane you taking. You taking inside or out? And I said, well, look, Austin took the inside. And if I was Austin Dillon, if I wanted to win that race a little cleaner, and I kind of knew that I suck on restarts, I think I would have taken the outside in hindsight.
Try to get the run out of 2.
Try to get that run out too. But I also kind of understood where he was coming from with Logano too. Logano has a history where he's on the inside and he kind of sends it into people and they wreck.
Well, I think that's what Jeff Burton even brought up too. Jeff Burton was talking on the broadcast. He was asking Steve Vittori. He goes, "Do you think Austin should take the top of the bottom?" And they had that same conversation.
Yeah. So, I don't know. I mean, I'm sure if different people were involved in the wreck, I'd have a little bit of a different mindset because we're fans, right? We're just fans at the end of the day. We got no dog in the fight. Realistically, right? We're not car owners. We don't work for the crews. We don't work for the teams. But I do think the right rear move was questionable there at the end, turning him in the right rear.
That's gonna be one of my points.
I don't think that was the right thing to do there. Whether they suspend him or not for the next race, I'm gonna go back to this. Remember in the All-Star race, they had that fight afterwards, and Stenhouse just laid out a punch on Kyle Busch and connected.
Mm-hmm.
Remember how they milked that out and then just gave Stenhouse a $75,000 fine?
They're going to do the same thing.
I think they're going to do the same thing. They're going to use that shit in their promotion material, talk about the playoff chaos, and then they're going to fine Austin Dillon. But I don't think they're going to take the win away from him because they haven't done that to a guy in a long time that deliberately wrecked people for the win. They haven't done that, and this is gonna sound with my pointless knowledge here. The only thing I could think of was 30 years ago when Ricky Rudd spun out Davey Allison at Infineon or Sonoma, going through the hairpin, coming to the white flag. He spun out Davey Allison, and that got him to win the race. But they waved the black flag at him, come to the checkered, and they gave the checkered to Davey Allison. So right then and there, they just took the win away from Ricky Rudd and gave it to Davey Allison. That is the last time that I've seen NASCAR do it because of rough driving.
Yeah.
So
there's been plenty for blocking somebody below the yellow or passing coming under the yellow coming to the checkered. So there's been plenty of that.
It's been plenty of that because Regan Smith's another prime example of that, right? And I think Justin Haley or it might have been Kyle Larson's another example of that too, where coming off of 4 at Daytona, having his left side tires on the yellow line, and they bopped him for passing below the yellow line, even though the tires were on the line, not below it.
Well, Johnny Sauter blocked Riley Herbst at Talladega a couple years ago in the truck race coming to the checkered, and they gave the win to Spencer Boyd, who was running third.
Yep, because both them guys wrecked. Yep, absolutely.
See, I didn't hate the finish. I thought it was wild to see him at least get to Logano, but
he drove that crap in wide open. It looked like the Hail Melon.
I didn't think he was going to get to him, to be honest.
But let's take that one out of it. The one everybody's really talking about is the one between the 3 and the 11. I don't think anything really happens to the 3 because there was no prior incident between them two, like how with Chase or Bubba.
Bubba, yeah.
There was no
because Denny definitely came up. Denny came up the racetrack, in my opinion. But to Scott's point, and he was talking about this too with us, Mike. Naturally you're coming up the racetrack anyway because that's how you're getting out of the corner.
Yeah.
But to AJ's point, I see where they probably won't do anything because it's not like they've had any other interaction earlier in the night to where Austin Dillon was doing any type of retaliation.
Like, I think that was just basically they're going for the win. Nobody's out there to put somebody in the hospital or something like that.
Right. Exactly.
Well,
right.
My thing on the finish is
Let's go ahead. I'm opening the mic to you. Go ahead and rant.
I was just going to say, this is my thinking on this. So Austin Dillon did what he had to do to win. Obviously, he was going to send it in there and do what he had to do to win. I didn't think personally he was going to get to Logano just because with these cars on short tracks, it's hard to get to somebody's bumper. And I was just saying, I don't think he's going to get there. And then he, like you said, he drove it in there deep. I mean, he probably drove it in wide open, like you mentioned, and then he took him out. And then my thing is he came down, but you know, I agree with you said that Hamlin's coming up out of the corner too, and they're meeting at the angle. But if you look at the right rear hooking that they've done in the past couple years, and I know that some of them have had histories, like Chase and Hamlin, they had a history, so I'm gonna get that point. But Bubba and Larson technically didn't have history. Bubba just came down after he put him in the wall and just took him out.
Well, and that's where I said, and that's where I've said too. Sorry to cut you off here, but that's where I said that Hamlin and Chase thing were the exact same thing, because Hamlin put Chase up in the fence out of 4, and Larson put Bubba in the fence out of 4, and it's just same situation. They were like, I don't care, broken toe link or not. I know I'm not going to be able to get them the rest of the day. Let me just end their night. Let me just end.
And like I said, Austin Dillon did what he had to do to get to the playoffs. Is it right? I guess, but is it wrong? It could be wrong, but it's all the entertainment factor that NASCAR set up with how much a win means for the playoffs anymore. But my thing is, if you're gonna right hook somebody, and the recent history of right hooking is for the guy to be suspended, sorry, you gotta go on recent history and suspend him.
Yeah, I mean,
at that case, do they take the win away? Because
I don't think they take the win.
No, they'll just suspend him. But I don't
okay,
think
but then
he's going to get a waiver.
That was
that's the next thing.
So what's the point of suspending him if he's going to get a waiver?
They gave it to Bubba.
Or let me throw out the third option. We just let Logano and Hamlin in the playoffs to say, all right, fair game, Austin Dillon. You ain't making it out of this round.
Okay, here's the news flash. You ready for this news flash? We're going to give it to you. It's so great. It's so great. When was the last time Austin Dillon made it past the round of 16 in the playoffs? I don't think he ever has.
No.
I just don't think. I don't think it's going to happen. Anyway, whether you put him in the fence or not for 3 weeks in a row, it don't matter. But I will say one thing that did bother me, and I'm not going to sit here and get into religion a whole lot, but I kind of have to agree with Logano. And I know it was heat of the moment because he just got out of the race car, right? But for Dillon to go out there, win the race, like in the way that he did it, and sit here going out here praising God and all this other crap afterwards, like, you're a person of faith. That's just a bad look. I'm sorry.
Yeah. I don't know if you guys saw Jeff Gluck's tweet, but Jeff Gluck tweeted out what the radio broadcast was for Austin Dillon's radio coming on the checkered. But I don't know if it was Richard or his crew chief or her spotter. They basically told, I can't say part
Richard
of it
has his distinct voice. I think people would know if it's Richard.
Yeah, I don't think it was him or not. But like I said, I was just reading Jeff Gluck's tweet, but I can't read all of it because there's cussing in there, and obviously we're live, and I'm not trying to get canceled here. But basically, they told Austin Dillon, do what you got to do, and if you get to him, wreck him. And they said, wreck him, wreck him, wreck him. On the radio.
I know why NASCAR wasn't happy with Logano after the race.
Why is that?
Because you know how they check tires and all that stuff when you first come into pit road? Mm-hmm. Logano went right by ripping a burnout and went halfway down pit road.
He did. And I think even post-race anyway, and Scott made a good point about this, that NASCAR and the tower probably said to the officials on pit lane, get as much security or officials that you can around the 22 and the 11 car.
I just sent it to you guys in our broadcasting chat so you guys can get a look at it as well when you guys get a chance. But he just rips a burnout right past him, and by the time he stops the car, they're surrounding that driver door or that driver window. It's like, I get you're mad. I get that. But that's going to get you fined. It could be a lot of money.
Yeah, that's not good because you just have regular ass people. Excuse my language. You just got regular people over there, just sitting there, no fire suits. I mean, you got probably media members down there, family members, whoever, right? Like, and camera guys. Like, and that's the part of pit road, like, at the end of the race, everybody's just nonchalantly looking out there and going out there. Like, you're not expecting that to happen. I just saw the video. You're not expecting that to happen. I don't care who you are.
So I just sent you guys the audio of what was said over the radio coming to check in for Dylan. So when you guys get a chance to listen to that.
That will
Oh
be
no.
post race. Or post podcast.
Welcome back, NASCAR, huh? What a good weekend.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I thought the race was solid, man. I mean, it's a good weekend. This was a solid Cup race to come back to.
I agree.
Yes.
And I did not have that much expectations for this weekend at all.
And I think that's why this was better than a lot of people were thinking, because they saw Richmond in the spring and Richmond last summer, where this race sucks. This car sucks.
Trash.
This, that, and the other. So I think everybody had really low expectations coming into this race because of the option tire and everything else that's going on. So I think this race really exceeded those low expectations to where maybe this race is better than what people are going to give it credit for.
Yeah.
I think if you're a hardcore racer and you love strategy and you love the long game, I think this is cool. If you were expecting crashes and chaos, you didn't get it throughout the race. You got it at the end, so maybe that's for you. You know, kind of wish it would have just gone green to the end anyway for Austin Dillon, so he could have just pulled away in dominating fashion. But I get it. By the way, I just want to say, and he didn't pass a damn car tonight. Kyle Busch started 12th, finished 12th. At least he finished the damn race for one. And on the lead lap, too.
Did you see, though, that NBC had him showing that he was cutting his
Man, they gave him a butter knife. They gave him a butter knife to cut up that freaking sling or whatever he had on, that wrap he had on.
He did.
Do you think he was just getting so overheated that his skin expanded and was like starting to cut circulation off?
Well, and Burton made a point about that during the broadcast, where he's had to put wraps on for his wrist. Because back in Jeff's day, you drove with eyes. You drove with your eyes popping out of your head like they're on springs.
Ricky Rudd. I mean, Ricky Rudd taped his eyes open.
So I mean, like, but I think
That
Jeff made a
sounds
good point
unhealthy.
where in the car you just naturally get hot and your body just expands with you. Which I think that's might have been what happened to Kyle, because they did wrap it a little tight. I think next week they might wrap it a little bit looser for him. Curious to see after 400 laps at Richmond how he's going to be this week, and if maybe they'll have like Austin Hill or Ty Dillon or somebody on standby for him going to Michigan.
So with Austin Dillon pulling off basically the shocker of the season, I think him and Cindric probably are the two guys that are pulled off the two shockingest wins of the entire season. But I was just going to say, let's look at the cut line now for the next 3 weeks and how close that is going to be.
Oh, you want standings? Look at the standings. Where are we at? Standings.
I think it's like a one point gap between like 3 and 4 guys. Now, I think Truex is still like 70 points ahead, and then Gibbs is like 20 points ahead, and then after that, it's like a 1 point gap between everybody.
So coming out of this race, I'm looking at the regular season standings, because the regular season championship is a pretty big deal.
Mm-hmm.
The 5 and the 9 flip. The 5 took the point lead after tonight in the regular season by 10 points over Chase. Tyler Reddick didn't gain any ground, it looks like. He's still 15 back in third. Danny Hamlin 4th, he's 43 back, and Ryan Blaney 5th, he's 73. So really, it's just going to be between them 3 cars. Come down to Darlington here at the end of the season. End of the regular season anyway. Now the playoff picture, that's nutty.
That's what I was getting at. I wasn't talking about the regular season. I was talking about the playoff.
They haven't locked Austin Dillon in yet.
So I don't think that part's updated yet.
I don't think that's updated yet. But I will say, here's the thing. I can't really hate on the Cindric win, because it was Blaney's crew that screwed up with the fuel at Gateway. And Cindric had the second fastest car all day. So I can't really say Cindric was like as much of a shock as Austin Dillon was, because Cindric had shown flashes at these flat racetracks that he could be pretty quick. But I mean, if we get Dillon in this official after post race inspection, That's the 13th different winner. So now the cut line is Truex, Gibbs, Busher. That's
And
your
what's
cut
the
line.
difference between Busher and Chastain?
Looks like about 10 points.
Oof.
And Bubba would be on the outside looking in. He would be
I think it's like 1 point, 2
17.
point.
He'd be 17 points behind Busher, I think. So once this gets updated after the races, after the results are official tonight, that's gonna be interesting.
And think about the remaining schedule that we have for the last 3 weeks of the regular season. You have a 2 mile at Michigan, which is going to be really good.
Mm-hmm.
Then Daytona, which is going to be a crapshoot, and that will be in chaos and insane racing once it gets down to the end after these guys save fuel for the first 5 stages. And then you go to Darlington, which Darlington in May was fantastic.
Yeah, with this, I don't know what it is. I don't care what generation of car you put around Darlington. It's always going to be a great.
Did I miss Watkins Glen?
Glen is
Watkins
in the playoffs.
Glen is in the playoffs because
okay.
Because of the Olympic break.
Mm-hmm.
So actually, let's talk about the schedule. I'll bring up the schedule for you here. Here we go. So
we got the next 3 races. So start at the playoff opener.
So yeah, so we got Richmond. We had that today. Mm-hmm. Then it's Michigan, Daytona. We talked about that. September, Atlanta is going to be your playoff opener. Then it's Watkins Glen.
Be wild.
Watkins Glen on September 15th. I'm curious to see how that track is going to be in September because they've never raced Watkins Glen this late in the year before.
I wonder if we're going to see some fall foliage up there too.
Might be a little cooler out.
Might be a little cooler out. Maybe some faster racing. Who knows? So the round of 16 is kind of chaotic. It's kind of bullshit.
It is very
chaos.
chaotic.
You got Atlanta, that's a plate track. You got Watkins Glen, that's a road course, and you got Bristol's the cutoff.
And Bristol's going to be, especially after what we saw in the spring with the tires.
Yeah, and because we got 5 weekends of racing in September, we got the Hollywood Casino 400 kicking off the round of 12. Got Kansas there.
Yeah,
and then you've got Talladega and the Roval for the round of 12.
Yep.
More chaos. Round of 8. We already know this, but I'm going to tell you anyway. Vegas, Homestead, and Martinsville. That one's a pretty tame round. I mean, outside of Martinsville, probably.
Yeah, Martinsville is pretty much the only wild one out of that.
And then for the championship, obviously, we got Phoenix. Sleep. I'm going to be asleep that day. Wake me up after 312 laps, and it'll probably be somebody in the top 3 that won the race. That's just kind of how it is there.
Or, I mean, if we want to mention supposedly the tentative playoff schedule for next year, they're tentatively putting Talladega in the round 8 next year.
They are indeed. I saw on the schedule that they're actually taking Homestead out of the playoffs, but I heard a rumor, this has kind of been a rumor for a little bit, that Homestead's trying to get the championship race back instead of Phoenix. Please. Yes, please. Please do.
Phoenix has, I think Phoenix has 2 years left on their deal. They have this year, next year.
I heard 2026 as well.
Oh, do they now?
I don't know, but I heard that after the Homestead race next year, which I think is like the 3rd or the 4th race of the year, they're going basically Daytona and then Homestead, I think. Something along those lines. It's in the first couple weeks of the season. That they are actually going to be upgrading that place. Now, they're not going to do a repave, but they're going to basically do everything but a repave. Because I guess from what I've heard spotters say on Door Bumper Clear and some guys and some people within the NASCAR community, the amenities need updated. The track looks old and it looks sad. So if they could stop making it look old and sad, might get a championship race back at Homestead again.
And if they put it in like the first couple of weeks of the season again, that reminds me of when they did that in 21, when they couldn't race in California due to COVID for a while, and they had to, they had to stay in Florida.
They went Daytona back to back. They had the Daytona 500, and then they had the road course the next week, and then they basically stayed in Florida for a month.
Yeah, I think they went to Vegas, and then they went back to Florida.
It was like it was Daytona road course, and then Homestead.
Okay, it was 3 weeks then. Okay.
Yeah, and then they went to Vegas after that. Which, looking at the schedule next year, I mean, you're trying to save the team's money, but you ain't doing a very good job of it from what I'm seeing all this hopping around.
Well, if they
Crisscross applesauce.
if they do the Florida swing, wouldn't that technically be like what IMSA does? Because IMSA stays for Sebring? Like, isn't that normally what IMSA does after the 24-hour race?
And I mean, if you think about it, though, yes, Sebring's their second race, but there's like 2 months,
I know.
in between those 2 races. So, for NASCAR, it's back to back. So if they are going, I hope they're going there second. But I saw one schedule where Vegas was second, then they're going back to Homestead or something like that. I'm just like, just Florida.
And I think that.
And all you would really have to do, if you're a small team, obviously you're not going to if you're Gibbs because you got a couple extra cars in your fleet. But if you're like, I don't know, say MBM, I'm just throwing them as an example.
Yeah.
All you really got to do is change out the diffuser and the spoiler from super speedway to your intermediate package, and you're done. I mean, that's how simple this new car is. But nobody's switching from, or just switching those things out and then just going to the racetrack. Nobody's doing that. Everybody's got 4 or 5 cars per team. Like Hendrick Motorsports, okay? They've got 4 teams, 5 cars per team. They got 20 cars in their fleet. So they can get away with doing some of that stuff. Which I guess in the long run, it makes sense for teams like Hendrick to have 5 or 6 or 7 cars. Whereas opposed to, if we go back to the Gen 6 era or the COT era or even the Gen 4 era, you had cars for every type of racetrack. You had your Pocono car, you had your Indianapolis car, you had your Michigan car, you had your short track car, you had your high bank car for like Bristol. I mean, you had cars for just about every type of racetrack that we go to. Now, you really only need 6 or 7 cars per team to kind of switch things out, and they just sit there and tear down and rebuild. Tear down, rebuild. Do the same thing over and over.
And I know this wasn't technically on the topic for tonight, but since we're talking about next year's schedule and next couple of years, that Auto Club short track, I highly doubt that's going to be a thing.
Yeah, I don't see it ever coming to fruition.
I don't think that's going to be a thing.
I heard they had to basically do a reconfiguration. So where they were originally going to put the front stretch,
yeah,
they can't do that now, supposedly. So they're actually gutting the entire track, and they're basically repositioning it on the map. So it's going to be a little different. But
didn't I heard a rumor that they sold some of that land to Walmart or like Amazon or something?
Not where the track's at, but the surrounding areas. Yeah, they've sold it off to like Amazon, Walmart, other industrial stuff. Now they do have, but what they've told, what Auto Club has told these people that have bought warehouses, race weekends, you have to be closed so we can use it for parking. Because technically, they didn't sell. Excuse me. They didn't sell the land to those people. It's on a lease. NASCAR still owns the land. So they still have the upper hand on like, okay, we're gonna sell it off, but we're gonna repurpose it. It's not a racetrack anymore. It's gonna be distribution centers. It's gonna be a lot of commercial. But I did hear that like there's gonna be NASCAR still has some land outside of the track that they're using for like West Coast offices, basically. Which is kind of, from what I understand, from when Brian France was running the sport, when he was on Junior's podcast a year or 2 ago, he was saying that they had offices out there previously, anyway, to work with like Hollywood and just those West Coast tracks. So,
well, and I especially think with the Clash,
and with Arca West being out there, it's kind of like maybe that's kind of like their Charlotte is that office out there.
Yeah, and I was gonna say without the Clash going to be in Los Angeles because that's not going to be a thing next year.
Yeah, it's going to Bowman Gray.
But you need that market out there in Southern California. NASCAR needs that market out there in Southern California. I mean, you have Sonoma, which is Northern California, which that's fine. But Southern California, you need a market out there, and they need to do something with Fontana. They need to make that track. I'm still one of the people that they should have never got rid of the 2 mile track. That's just my opinion. They should have never got rid of it.
So you know what's funny? I did some research and I was watching a podcast on this the other day. They had a whole podcast dedicated to Ontario Motor Speedway. You know, the Indianapolis of the West.
Mm-hmm.
And we can kind of wrap up on this. But they had it to where when they were building California Speedway in the 90s, when Roger was building California, you know how far it was from the original Ontario Motor Speedway?
How far are we talking?
2 miles.
Oh shit!
2 miles away.
It could have been on the same property.
I mean, but that property was already built up with neighborhoods and malls and stuff. But 2 miles away from Ontario. 2 miles. Think about that, y'all. So it's right off of I-10. It's no different. And it's sad to see, but I mean, the track, the grounds that it was sitting on was worth more than the actual racetrack. And NASCAR had a lot of debt they had to pay, so you gotta do what you gotta do to pay off some of your debt.
You wanna check the multi-stream chat to see if anybody put anything in there before we wrap up?
There's nothing. I just checked. Oh,
Yeah.
hey. No, Ryan did.
Ryan
and then it
said hi.
disappeared.
Yeah,
Give me a
disappeared.
sec.
You look to see if he asked a question. Oh, here
There
we go.
it is.
The Glen is on his birthday. He's excited for that.
Okay. Good for Ryan.
Yeah,
Good for him.
so. Ryan, you going out to does he go out to Watkins Glen? He doesn't really go.
He goes to Martinsville.
I know he went to Bristol last year.
I don't know if he's going to try that again, but he's definitely gone to Martinsville multiple times. And I told him that next time he goes, he needs to package up a hot dog and send it up my way.
Martinsville is on my bucket list one day.
So we've got to over under for Martinsville.
What's the over under? Oh, the hot dog.
Oh, it's not happening. 100%.
How many hot dogs Rob is going to eat if he goes to Martinsville this year?
Oh,
Rob or Ryan?
Rob. Not Ryan. Not Ryan. I know Ryan's a big boy. I've seen him on podcasts. But I'm not trying to call him fat. All right? I'm just saying.
Come on, man.
Rob
Rob
was
shame
one
man.
that had 16 hot dogs last year in the weekend. And
That's
I made a bet that he would eat 20. He didn't know I made a bet that he would eat 20. But I was disappointed with Rob that he only ate 16 because I was thinking he was going to eat 20.
Oh, I thought you said 60.
No, 16. 1-6.
Oh, no,
1-6.
Don't do that to Rob, man.
He ate 16. Now, okay, let me back up.
I had 7 yesterday.
Okay.
Okay, good for you.
Most of them were out the bun because we were out of buns.
Do you stuff them down with beer?
No, but we were roasting them over a campfire, so I just kept.
You just kept going.
Roasting them all right.
That's fair.
They were good.
You were roasting them all right.
Oh, Jesus Christ. We're losing it
Those
here.
Nathan dogs.
No, but no, I mean, now when Rob said he ate these 16 hot dogs, all right.
They were all footlongs and girthy.
It was over a course of a 3-day period. So that was between Friday night's truck race, the Xfinity race Saturday, and the Cup race. So he didn't spread them out. It's not like he ate 16 hot dogs on Sunday, okay? I know that's not much better, but, you know.
We're going off the rails now.
We are off the rails. But it is.
If anybody's gonna watch this show, skip it to an hour 5, and you'll have the best time of your life.
Right?
So,
yeah, just time.
I know we got rid of the Pac-12 After Dark, but is this the Often Turn On podcast After Dark?
Sure. This race did kind of end late tonight, so but it is what it is. Since we're kind of revamping, just some housekeeping notes as we wrap up here. If the races are on Saturday night, we will cover them. Like a cup race typically. However, Mike did bring it to my attention that there's an IndyCar race and Milwaukee truck race here in the next couple weeks that are on Sunday and Daytona's on Saturday night. Mm-hmm. So we'll work that out. We might go live 2 days in a row. I haven't really figured it out yet. We'll probably just go live Sunday, but
do we want to preview real quick next week, Michigan, and then IndyCars and where's IndyCar next week?
That's a quick Google. Well, NASCAR
Gateway
is in the Irish Hills of Michigan.
Yep, and IndyCar's in Gateway.
Yeah,
I love
to
it
wrap
when they
up
go
the
to Michigan.
IndyCar schedule, they've got Gateway, Portland, Milwaukee, and they got Milwaukee back to back on Labor Day weekend. Same schedule as when NASCAR's going to be there. NASCAR will be at Darlington. So they got Gateway, Portland, Milwaukee doubleheader, and then Nashville Super Speedway on the 15th of September. So we got that going for us to end the IndyCar schedule. So that's gonna be fun. But
That
preview.
Portland race is always. I was gonna say that Portland race is always so
Portland's
good.
always a banger on the IndyCar schedule. I don't care who you are. Portland's always a banger. So that'll be a good race. What I'm looking forward to though with Michigan, the Xfinity race is gonna be really good next week. Kind of shifting gears back to Michigan. Xfinity race has always been a solid race there. They're kind of at the point where that track has finally aged a little bit to where they're running pretty much all the lanes now.
Mm-hmm.
And I know they repaved that track about 10, 12 years ago, and it's getting back to where it was really good racing before the repave. So NASCAR with the Cup race there, it's kind of still one grooved a little bit. I know they were able to expand a little bit last year to make it multi-groove, but still basically one liner, fortunately for Cup cars. But I think Xfinity is going to be exciting. Cup might get a little boring because of aero wash and single file. So, what's your thoughts, Mike?
I was gonna say Xfinity will be pretty exciting because that car race is good anywhere it goes. Cup Series, I can see your point being a one groove racetrack, but I do think that the racing may be a little bit better this year. I mean, I think the last couple of years has been cloud cover and cool and rainy. So if they get a good weekend of like sunshine and warm weather, maybe that will help with the track conditions with that Cup car.
Yeah, for sure. AJ, your thoughts?
I always like Michigan. I
Yeah.
enjoy racing Michigan whenever I decide to hook up my wheel and everything.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I wish there were more of a multi groove throughout the run instead of just everybody moving at the same time.
Yeah, for
But
sure.
I don't know. I like Auto Club better than Michigan, even though they're almost the exact same track. But Auto Club is more bumpy. Um, but now we got to deal with this being the only 2 mile D-shaped oval.
Yep.
I have made jokes about that being the only 2 mile D-shaped oval in America now. All they gotta do is just reconfigure Texas Motor Speedway, make it a half-mile longer, change the name from Texas Motor Speedway to Texas World Speedway. Let's do it. Get done. Got it. Got yourself a 2 mile D-shaped oval right there, Dallas, Texas, Fort Worth area. Get it done. Just spend the money, Marcus Smith. Spend the money. You wanted to reconfigure the track anyway. Just make it a bigger racetrack.
I mean, he reconfigured Atlanta, so you can do the same thing in Texas. Like, make it bigger.
Yeah, but I don't like Atlanta the way it is.
I don't mind Atlanta.
I don't think anybody likes Atlanta the way it is. But we're just saying, if he could mess up Atlanta, I mean, do at least Texas justice here.
I don't mind Atlanta. I mean, I still miss the old one. Don't get me wrong, but I don't mind the new one.
I can't remember which driver said this here at the beginning of the year when Daniel Suarez won the race, but basically, like, it's here in the next couple of years, it's going to be so bumpy and worn out that you're not going to see the side-by-side close racing that you'll see. I mean, really, when we saw that 3-wide finish back in February, March, it was a cooler day, obviously, because it's early in the year, but also that was really the last year where it's just silky smooth. You know?
Well, you remember the race in the summer last year when they were racing the rain and how it kind of reminded me of an old-fashioned Daytona race. You race in a pack for a little bit and then it spread out.
Yeah. I think Atlanta is going to start getting towards that direction here in the next year. We see it in the Xfinity series already, and we see it in the Truck series already. So, I think it's just because the Cup cars produce so much more downforce compared to the other two series that we haven't really seen it that much. But I think the drivers are a little bit more talented in the Cup series to where they can hold side by side longer.
Most weeks.
Unless
you're Austin Dillon, then apparently you suck for your whole career and thank the Almighty afterwards when you win.
You get half the garage calling you the some type of chicken word.
Chicken crap.
Yep.
And nepotism.
Yeah, I've heard that a lot today about.
I've seen that a lot on Twitter today. So, but anyways, final thoughts, AJ.
Congratulations on your first episode actually doing everything.
Oh,
Yeah, good job.
So proud of you.
Thanks for having
You're
me.
growing so fast.
Thanks for having me come on and co-host with you now this year.
Yeah.
I know I made an appearance last year, but
yeah. So
We
we're gonna
both did
revamp
in
the
the
show a
same
little more.
exact
We'll talk
episode.
about it a little bit.
I know we did.
But yeah, it was actually earlier this year. It wasn't last year, but that's okay. Whatever. Anyways, but that's all for us tonight. Thank you guys so much for watching, and we will catch y'all next time. So we will see you all later.